Hello and welcome. Apologies for the delay getting started today. You're back with Donal here in another Thunkable on air. So I work in the creator success department in Thunkable, and my job, my role is all about helping people understand how to use Thunkable and how to get the most out of their apps. So as you've probably noticed from today, our theme is all about building a user interface for a music player app. So we've got a couple of different things that we want to show you, a few different websites that you can use, a few different services that you can use. And we're going to go back to the very beginning. We're going to start off with a community post and a new initiative that we have in the community that you can try out for yourself. So hopefully we're going to be running this for the next few weeks at least. So regardless of when you're watching this, you should be able to drop in and try this out. So we're going to look at our weekend design challenge. And there's something new and something interesting for you to try out each weekend and test your design skills and improve your building abilities with Thunkable. So with that being said, let me start sharing my screen with you. And then hopefully here is, excuse me, a quick overview. Okay, so we're going to design a music player app. And when you're building your app, some people can kind of get a little bit overwhelmed with all of the new things that there are on display with Thunkable. So we're going to just start with the designer and not worry too much about the blocks or coding it or whatever. We're going to do some simple blocks, but we're not going to worry about going into too much detail. We're going to try and separate these two, the design side of it from the coding side of it. Okay, so last week, what we did was we created a new competition or a challenge or an activity for you to participate in over in the Thunkable community. It's called the Weekend Design Challenge. The whole idea of this then is that every week you'll have a new UI or a new user interface that you can try out, and you can try and replicate it or reproduce it in Thunkable in the designer. So without having to touch the blocks, without having to go near any of the code or understand any of the logic, you can just figure out how all the positioning and the placement and the design side of things works. So because I was listening to my music player last week, I thought this would be a nice place to start. So it's got a few little buttons. It's got a couple of labels here, maybe for keeping track of time. And the whole idea of this challenge was that you could come up with your own, your entire design language around this. So the music player is fairly well understood. There's a couple of key components that you have to have. There's a few extra components that you can put in to personalize it as well. And then in terms of like the theme as well, you can go wild in terms of choosing your own color scheme and going fonts and all this kind of stuff as well. So we've got a few different entries and a few different questions in the community. This particular challenge is closed, but as I say, this is something that we're hoping to do over the next couple of weeks. And what you can do is there'll be a new challenge for you to participate in each weekend. Okay. So for example, this is next an entry from Aravind, and he has a nice little screen grab here of of an artist. Let's say they've got a song title and an artist title in a slightly smaller font. You can see a large bold font here for the song title and a smaller font in a lighter weight for the name of the artist. Let's go back here a little bit. Sorry, I've got a little bar along the bottom here then that's going to illustrate whereabouts we are, our progress bar in the track. A little label here to indicate the time or the time elapsed, and we've got a loop button, I guess is what I understand that to be. We've got a different colors here then for our skip buttons and our play button, play pause button, and then we've got this shuffle button here as well. So some of these were suggested or hinted at in the outline. We're going to have a look and try and do some of these things here. So when you're designing any app, not necessarily use this music player app, but a really great idea is just to start sketching things out with pen and paper. And if I had kind of an overhead camera rig here, that's probably how I'd start today. But there's loads of great design software out there, and I want to give a shout out to Darren, aka Amblemind, who makes great tutorials as well. He's a power thunker, and you can find him over in the community as well. And he's done a couple of videos like this where he takes an example or a mock-up and he translates it over into Thunkable. So I'm going to put those, they're not there just yet, but I will put links to those 2 videos in the description of this video, and you can have a look at those. So he uses a piece of software called Canva. Again, if you're used to it, you're familiar with it, you can use that. If you use PowerPoint, well, you could use PowerPoint if you wanted to. If you want to use something like Photoshop, if you have access to that. And I've been experimenting or playing around with some software called Figma, again, and that lets you experiment and mock up things really quickly as well. So another idea then that you can do is you can go out and look at some existing music players. So what does iTunes look like? What does VLC look like? What does Spotify look like? All of these different music players, and you can try and replicate those ones first. And then once you have once you've created some basic design, then you can customize it the way you want it. Again, in terms of not making things too complex or too difficult for yourself, just start out with the basic functionality. Get the most important things in there first. So for a music app, you'd want to be able to play and pause a particular track. You'd want to be able to move back and forth between the tracks, but just start with something really, really simple, and then test it out. Once you're happy with your test, then go back and try and make some improvements in it then. So I think, yeah, just to give us some ideas here, let's say we definitely want a button to control whether or not the music is playing. So that could be 2 buttons. It could be a play and stop or a play and pause. But what we want to do is create a kind of a toggle button here that's play and pause. Another thing then that we will do is give the user skip back and forth between tracks. They probably want to be able to turn the volume up and down. So there's a couple of different ways, I suppose, that we could do that. We want to maybe be able to stop, loop, shuffle, all of these things. So this will be for the next version or the next iteration then of our app as we go along. Okay, so let's jump out of this here really quickly and head over to Thunkable. Okay, so hopefully you're all there. You're all still with me. So as I mentioned, yeah, one of the kind of tools that I was using recently is called Figma. So what I did was I grabbed a little screenshot here of our phone. Here's one I've kind of been preparing earlier. And it's very simple. I mean, you could do this in Paint or something as well if you wanted. Create a little button here, and you can choose the height and the width. 64, let's say, by 64. Let's see what that looks like. And it allows you to kind of line things up. So here, I could set this to be in the center. We can make some copies of these as well. And you can just get a sense very quickly of what things look like. You can, in terms of putting a little bit of spacing between them as well. And here you can see just when the buttons are all the same size, it looks, to me, it looks a little off. It looks a little strange. So we can kind of shrink these down a bit. Let's say, let's make that 48 by 48, okay? And 48 by 48. And again, we can move it around. So we could have them all sitting at the bottom like this, for example. Let's make a clone of this one. Let's get rid of that one there. Like that, and you can see, okay, they look okay. Maybe if we were to center them all, okay, that'd be another way to do it. So again, this allows you to move things around, and obviously the best way to do it is just by sketching things out on pen and paper. Draw a little rectangle to represent your phone and just start sketching and drawing things then. So we'd want some area in the middle then for our device art, or maybe an equalizer is what I think of when I think of a music player. So it's something that's happening, something that's going on when the music is playing, and that's what I want to put in here as well. So I want to create I guess some sort of kind of an equalizer. I want some sort of effects happening here, I guess, for want of a better word, when my music is playing, and I want it to stop when the music stops playing. Okay, so let's have a look in here really quickly. And what we want to do then is start adding a few components into our app. So to lay things out precisely and to control how things are positioned on the screen, what we want to do is use rows and columns. So I'm going to throw in a row at the bottom, and they're going to be for the controls, and then the column up at the top is going to be for the art, the album art, the song title, any of those kind of things there as well. Okay, so in the row, let's put in a few buttons. So we'll start with 3. Again, we might want more buttons, but let's start with 2 or 3 here to begin with. Button 1, button 2, and button 3. And to make our lives as easy as possible, in this row, we want it, at the moment, you can see the outline here. It's taking up about half the screen. We're going to change the height here to be fit contents like that. So it's only going to be as big as the elements that are inside it. Button 1 over here, I'm going to rename this. So if you've watched any of the episodes before, you know how these work. So we'll call this one the back button. We'll call this one the play button in the middle, and play button here. And then over on this side, we'll have the forward button. Okay, great. The next thing then that we want to do is maybe start thinking about the size and the shape of these things. So the row, I'm going to give it a little bit of padding. Let's throw some margin on the top and bottom here. Give it a little bit of space. And let's make the buttons themselves a little bigger. So let's make what we even in our kind of mock-up there, we went for 64 by 64. Let's try that one here to set the height to be 64. And let's do the same thing here for the other one like that. Okay, I'm going to change the color for a second, just so it's a little bit easier to see, like that. And then we'll put a bit of padding all around this one here. So let's push a bit of margin, 4 pixels all around, like that. And then we'll do the same thing with these ones. I find that when you found what you kind of a value that you like, it's good to just apply that then to all of the components straight away. Okay, and then this one, we could make them the same size, but we kind of felt from our mock-up that we'd like them to be a slightly smaller size. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to try 48 by 48, like that. And then let's set the background color here. We'll make these ones blue for a second. Background color blue, and then make the size here 48 by 48. By 48. Okay, great. Okay, and the next thing then that we want to do is I just want to have a look at the alignment properties here within the row, because this is a question that people ask all the time. How do I move things to the top, or how do I move things to the bottom, or how do I move things to the left or the right? And you can see here then that in the row, the horizontal and vertical alignment by default are set to be center. So the horizontal is this position here from side to side, and what we can do is we can move them to the left or we can move them to the right. So for example, left align everything over to the left, and right align pushes everything over to the side. These ones I definitely want, though, to be right in the middle of the screen. We could move things around really quickly and easily. If we were to put the buttons up at the top, that'd be a different way of doing things, of course, but it'd just make it more difficult. Have to consider what it'd be like on the user's phone. Would they be able to reach up to the top of the screen to press the play and pause button and stuff? But in terms of the vertical alignment, then this is one that we looked at as well in our mock-up, and we could, again, really quickly mock it up here. It's like, oh, okay, these aren't too bad if we put them here along the bottom. And of course, when you move them to the bottom, it means it's easier for the user to press on these buttons as well. But we're going to go and we're going to keep everything center aligned for the moment anyway, and see what happens there, see how we go with this. The next thing then that I want to do is I'm going to put an image here into the center of my column, and that's what's image. Okay, like that. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, 250 by 250 maybe. Okay, all right, so I'm going to grab a couple of images here. Should have uploaded these ahead of time, but I've got a stationary person, not moving. And the other thing then I have is also a moving person here. So this is a little animated GIF. If you watched our Snapgram tutorial, that was probably 4 weeks ago at this stage, we use this very subtly or very discreetly to change out the shutter button here, where a little animation was displayed and then it was hidden from view. So we're going to go into this in a little bit more detail and give you kind of an idea or a sense of how that works. The other thing then we want to do is very quickly then add in some images here for background picture for our buttons. So we've got a play button here, I think. We've got pause. We can make it a pause button for a second. We could also upload the play. I'm going to grab all of these here really quickly. Play. maybe this one here, next, back. Okay, hopefully then these will all upload. Brilliant. Okay, so these are all added here into our editor like that. Okay, so what's going to happen then when the play button is clicked? We could just swap out the text. I think we've done this before in a previous example, but what we're going to do is we want a variable, I think, to keep track of whether or not the music is playing. So is playing. And when the app starts up, it's interesting. So I have a variable called that in my other app, in my sample app, and let's set that here to be false at the beginning. Maybe we can make it a little bit more wordy. Is the music playing? Okay, great. So no, the music isn't playing, and what we can do then is we can do a check when our button is pressed. If the music is playing, then we're going to stop, and if it's stopped, then we're going to start it. So if music is playing, and then what we're going to do is check here we're going to change the image picture. So if it's playing, we'll move it back to be stopped, and we'll change the button picture. Here's our play button, and we'll change that picture here, this, to be if it's playing, and we're going to set it back to play, actually, kind of counterintuitively, like this one, I hope. And then in here, then we'll have a little else like that as well. So we can copy and paste these, set this one to moving. Let me just mute this really quickly. One fun tip here is that you can mute a tab, so hopefully the sound effects aren't too loud for you. We can copy and paste these, and we're going to put in the pause button here, like that. So let me live test this. Let me fire up my phone here for a second, and what I might do is give you a chance then to have a look at the app here as it's running. Okay, cool. Let's have a look here really quickly. So I'll give you a quick look at those blocks there. Apologies for the air silence, the air gap there. What we want to do is test out this app to see whether or not it'll load for us. So we're just toggling back and forth between the play button and the pause button. And another thing then that you can do is, so I've used some kind of stock images to get started. That's not the right button there, but is there play? I don't have the play button, but anyway, that's okay. When I click it, it'll pause. And then I want to change that layout then. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick preview of this in a second. You can see our little animation is moving away here. We want it stopped by default. Play it, pause it. If standing, else. Okay. So one thing we have to do is we have to toggle the state there. So we're going to set that to be, if it is playing, set it to be false. Otherwise, set it to be true. Like this. Okay, cool. All right, that makes a lot more sense. All right, let me jump out of the thing there for a second. Actually, isn't this always what happens? Let's turn in the brightness there. Okay, great. So you can see we've got a little stationary character here. And what we're doing then is putting in a little animation. So when the music is playing, We've got a little pause button down here. And then what we can do then is it goes back. If I pressed it, it'll go back to the play button. So obviously I got a small little error there in my code, and I don't want to keep it too much longer, but I'm going to do a quick preview of the sample app, and this is the one that's going to be available then here. So it's playing. If it's not playing. Okay, cool. I might just not have updated quite yet. Okay, let's have a quick look. So at the one that I prepared earlier, Beats was my very imaginative name. And then, so what I started doing then is playing around with some of the styling and the animation and so forth. So I've got a couple of I've got labels up here then to keep track of, say something like the time. Then in the middle, then you've got your animation, and I've chosen the same color in the background, so it all kind of blends in rather seamlessly. And then over here, we've got a kind of a progress bar that's able to scroll across, to move across then as the track progresses. So at the moment, it's got a width of 10 pixels, but let's say it had a width of 100 pixels or 200 pixels, something like that, let's say. So we can use this then as a mock-up to demonstrate whereabouts we are, or where our progress then within the app. Okay, cool. Let's do a quick check here, maybe. All right. Cool. Hello to everybody that's watching. Wow, there's tons of people today. Thank you for all your commentary. Okay, cool. So what I want to do then is invite you all and encourage you all to participate then in this week's weekend design challenge. This week happens to be a weather app. So again, the same idea, reduce it down to its simplest. You're going to need some icons to represent the different weather. You're going to need, stop presenting here. You're going to need some icons to represent the weather. You're going to need some large text, put some of the most important information, smaller text then for less important text. You might want to be able to move back and forth between different locations or something like that. But again, we go back, if you think about it, just what are the most important things? What should it look like? And it's literally just about where does everything go on the screen, and have a look then at we'll share some resources in terms of tools that you can use for designing, and websites that you can use for using kind of placeholder images or stock images or something like that within your app. Go ahead then and pick your own color scheme and your color palette and stuff like that, and you can completely customize the look and the feel of your app. So yeah, even regardless of when you're watching this app, hopefully you drop over to the community and you'll find there's some sort of a design challenge going on, and a place where you can kind of share your mock-ups and your designs for Thunkable apps. Okay, so have a great weekend. Best of luck in the design challenge, and hopefully we'll see you all next week. Bye.